Welcome to Click for Biology. We're studying the structure of the eye, its structure and function, and then we'll take a quick look at the way that the eye deals with different intensities of light. So straight into the structure, we begin with the cornea, which is the glassy portion of the eye at the front of the eye. So let's label that onto this structure here. The cornea's function includes being part of the process of bending light. It actually bends light quite significantly as it enters the eye, although it can't change the degree of bending, as it doesn't have a focusing mechanism, but it does bend light through the eye and onto the retina. The portion of the eye, the colored portion of the eye that we can see is just this part here. That's called the iris. Of course, if we draw our pupil, which in the diagram would be here, that's surrounded by the iris here, and outside of the iris we have the white of the eye, which is the sclera, which I'm going to label here. Now the sclera actually extends all the way around the outside of the eye in this area here as well, coming all the way around in a complete circle, as it were. As mentioned, the pupil is here, and this is essentially a gap, a hole, allowing eye to pass through the cornea, and then actually at the front of the eye, in front of the pupil, but behind the cornea. So if I just shade that in, this bulging section of the eye here is actually referred to as the aqueous humor, and this jelly-like substance gives the eyeball shape and gives it support. After the aqueous humor, light passes through the pupil and then it encounters the lens, and the job of the lens is to focus light onto a specialized set of receptors here, which are called the fovea, or the macula is another name for them. There you will find cone cells responsible for color vision. The lens itself is supported, or suspended rather, by some fibers, some ligaments in this area here. They go all the way around in the plane of the eye. In other words, they're kind of going all the way around like so. And we'll take a look at that in more detail when we look at focusing. But these are called the suspensory ligaments. Now again, around the outside of the eye in this area here, this is actually going in a circle around the eye, but we're looking at the wrong plane to see that circle. But when we do focusing, we'll take a look at this again. This is the ciliary muscles. And they are a vital part of the focusing mechanism. The jelly behind the lens and giving the eyeball shape is the vitreous humor. Light passes through that and then falls onto the light-sensitive part of the eye called the retina, which is this inner membrane, which has a specialized region called the fovea, which I previously mentioned. The retina has rod cells, and these rod cells are responsible for detecting various levels of light. They actually are more functional in the dark than they particularly are in strong light areas, but are important nevertheless in your peripheral vision. Around the retina, which is here, there's a layer between the retina and the sclera, which is called the choroid. If you observe this, it's actually a black color. And the purpose of this black color is to absorb any internally reflecting light. And that gives us a better crispness to the images that we are able to then generate in the optic regions of the brain. Which brings us to the connection of the retina to the brain, which takes place via the optic nerve, which is in this area here. All the endings of the cells are connecting into this zone here, which is the optic nerve. And curiously, this means that if we actually observe the retina, which is possible if you look into the eye with a light, you can see the black area at the back of the eye and the glow of the retina, and you're actually observing one of two parts of the central nervous system that lie outside of the cranium, outside of the brain case. So there's the end of the optic nerve in the retina is actually part of your central nervous system, and the other one is actually to do with smell, which is the olfactory bulb, but you can't observe that like we can the retina. So the optic nerve then relays nerve impulses to the visual centers of the brain. Where the optic nerve comes into the retina, this actually does leave a region just here, just label that there, where there are actually no light sensors, and we call that the blind spot. So no doubt you'll do some experiments in class to see if you can detect the functioning of the blind spot. So that's the parts of the eye. So let's take a look at this ability to respond to different light intensity. So this is syllabus statement 2.92, and focusing we'll do in another video, but in this one we're looking at the light intensity. So we have to come back, and now I'm looking at the front of the eye, and what you're looking at here in black in this zone here, that's the pupil. And so in the iris structure, we have two sets of muscles, some which attach to the edge of the retina, I beg your pardon, to the edge of the pupil, and then extend outward. And then these are called the radial muscles. You can see I've drawn them in red and only drawn just a few to give the idea. Alternatively, there are concentric rings of muscle around the pupil, and these are known as the circular muscles. In the dark, the radial muscles contract and pull the edge of the retina, the edge of the pupil outward like so. And this has the impact of making the pupil larger. So this is an adaptation to being in the dark, and that will allow more light to fall upon your retina in the attempt to make an image in poor lighting conditions. Alternatively, it may be that the light is very bright, and under those conditions, the circular muscles will contract. So if one imagines a circle like so, and if that circle gets shorter, because that's what muscles can do, then the diameter of that circle will get smaller. And so with a number of concentric rings of muscle involved in this mechanism, this means that in bright light, these circular muscles will contract, making the pupils smaller, and that prevents overstimulation of the retina and allowing you to make a crisper image in your mind of the scene in front of you. So that's the structure of the eye and the mechanism of responding to changes in light intensity. In the next video, the link of which is appearing before you right now, you can click through to look at focusing mechanisms in the eye, or what's called accommodation. And if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the channel. It's very encouraging if you do that.